the time to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce us to our amazing presenter today. We have Therese Willkomm here to share with us. She is a clinical and associate professor, national speaker, the director of the New Hampshire statewide Assistive Technology program, and she is a self-advocate. We are so happy to have you here today. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. She is going to be sharing about new methods, materials, and resources for creating and adapting assistive technology. And we are so grateful to have her with us. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and let you take it away, Therese, and share your wisdom with us.
Awesome. All right. Hey, it is a thrill to be here and to be able to be with you for 2 hours and show you really some awesome things on assistive technology and creating hundreds of devices in minutes using various tools and materials. So I'm sharing my screen. There we go. All right, so what happens is usually when I'm presenting, people often say, oh, where do you get the videos and where do you get the resources and the different tapes and the different tools? So just want to let you know this is available on Amazon.com, Make Stuff and Love People. So that's the third book. And the first part of this presentation, I'm going to be focusing on corrugated plastic and all of the amazing things you can do with corrugated plastic. And so it was a bumper crop this year with tons and tons of corrugated plastic being donated as a result of leftover signs from the election. And so often that material started coming in November, December, January, February. And what we do with that material is I have invented well over 114 different types of assistive technology devices that can be made with corrugated plastic, recycled election signs. And so these are just a few of the things on the left. I look at corrugated plastic as origami. And one of the things that to share with you is that I have Tourette syndrome and I also have dyslexia. And so one of the gifts about Tourette is OCD. And so I get obsessed by tapes and I get obsessed with corrugated plastic and Instamorph and all of these things. And as long as my hands are busy and moving, it really minimizes my tics. And so growing up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin, I started inventing and building things. My mom said I was 5 years old when I started creating and taking machines apart and putting them back together. And so in the middle, this is a rotating, it's like a lazy Susan. It's something that can be done in 5 minutes or less using corrugated plastic because there's those little holes in the middle and the flutes. So this spins around. So this is a self-feeder for individuals who are not able to feed themselves. They can use their bottom lip to rotate to the next fork, The forks slide in and out. And so stabbing the food and sliding it into the little receptacle with the corrugated plastic and then a little spinner, kind of like a ball bearing thing that I took off of a chair. On the right is an arm trough. This was for a student that had Rett syndrome and had a real hard time getting her body to cooperate and needed something to hold down her forearm. Once her forearm was held down, she was able to use her iPhone. And then the red thing that goes underneath, that's a forearm support that attaches to the table that I made out of 3/4 inch PVC pipe. In the lower left-hand corner is what I call is my iPad flipper. So when we're working with individuals who experience deafness, and so what happens is that there's an app called AAC Flip Writer, or we can use the gyroscope that's built into the iPad and to be able to flip this back and forth to be able to communicate. And you'll see there's green wire that I slide through the flutes to allow it to flop back and forth. And then the lower middle is my scan and read box. And I originally designed this for individuals who are blind or low vision, but it turns out that the majority of the users are students with learning disabilities. So you put your book, you put your sheet of paper inside the box, put your phone on top, and there's an app called Seeing AI. And it's a free app for the iPhone, and you just tap the screen and it takes a picture and scans it, which is like really cool. And then in the lower right-hand corner is making a one-handed page holder. How do you slide the pages for people who experience cerebral palsy, and turning the pages and holding the pages open. So this is the back of my lab. This is what it looks like with all this stuff donated. And when it comes in the door, we clean it all up. We wipe them all down. And then we let them dry, then we stack them. We also sort by colors and we harvest the colors. So we literally get over 2,000 signs donated each year, and we manufacture probably about over 5,000 different devices, and we send them out all over. So it's a really great material. Prior to corrugated plastic, I was making things out of acrylic and wood. And then I discovered this amazing material that I can reuse over and over again. And so, so that you can appreciate the other slides that we talk about various devices, I wanted to show this particular clip because corrugated plastic, not only is it free, low cost, it's really, really easy to work with. Unlike cardboard really hurts my hands trying to use a pair of scissors. Cardboard absorbs moisture, but corrugated plastic, you can wipe it down. It's so cool to work with. So let's just watch this video clip, and this should give you a better idea of how we make the various devices.
There are 6 tools that we use when we're working with corrugated plastic. We use a T-square, we use a clever cutter, a utility knife, a Coraclaw, a pair of scissors, and a paper cutter. In terms of tape, our primary tape that we use is double-sided permanent foam mounting tape. But when I want to attach acrylic to corrugated plastic, I'll use Remo 1, which is permanent on one side and removable on the other. And then when I'm combining acrylic with, or corner guard with corrugated plastic, I will often use VHB tape, which stands for very high bond. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the tips and tricks of working with these tools. And one of the things that I discovered is if I have large sheets of corrugated plastic and I want to cut them up, I will cut them on a paper cutter. And the paper cutter works really great. So I can go down. Notice sometimes I have to pull the paper cutter toward me as I'm cutting. So you can get a nice fast cut with a paper cutter. Next, I'm going to talk about the T-square. And so I'm going to go ahead and slide this out of it. All right, so the reason I use my T-square is because if I take my 2 pieces of corrugated plastic, and I'm going to just cut a piece off here, and I want to score going across the flutes. Many times what I'll do is, here's my straight edge. So if you zoom in on the straight edge, all right, and I want the top piece to be flush with the bottom piece. And then with the utility knife, I'm going to extend it up only about that much. This part goes in the palm of my hand. My finger, my index finger goes on top. And I don't want to go straight up and down. I want to go at about an angle because I want to make sure that I get a nice straight line. And notice what I'm doing is I'm scoring across the flutes. So I'm going boom, boom, boom. You're going to hear boom, boom, boom. And do you see the tool is bent or turned at about a 30-degree angle? And now look at, I go off and straight at midair. So I don't gouge the table. Now, see my score line? look what I'm going to do. I'm going to line that score line up with the edge of the table. I'm going to put one hand here, and I'm going to push down. So notice now it doesn't bounce back, right? So that's what I get going across the flute, makes it more stronger, okay? So if I went with the flutes, and this is a claw, it's got two projections. So if I use the first projection and I slide this right inside that first flute, and I slide it all the way through, notice how this springs goes boink, right? So sometimes we want a very rigid, strong structure that's not going to bounce back, and then sometimes we want something that's going to spring. Now, if I'm scoring a lot of corrugated plastic, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use a T-square. And so with my T-square, what I like is I turn it upside down. And so if I want to score 1 inch, so I need you to really zoom in here and notice this says 3, it doesn't say 1. And the reason is, notice this says 2, that means from here to here is 2 inches. But because I'm using the T-square a little bit differently, is I've got this rest off the edge. Never put the T-square on the table because now you're going to get some fluctuation. So this goes off the edge of the table. Now my corrugated plastic goes right into there. Now I want it to make a score line at 1 inch. So I like taking masking tape and putting masking tape for frequent score lines for maybe 1 inch, maybe, so that's 6 1/4. So then I have to always subtract 2. So if it says 3 minus 2, that gives me, so I've got the 1 inch here. So that's really 1 inch from here to here. Now watch, my tool is at an angle again, and now I'm going to score boom, boom, boom. We don't cut through the corrugated plastic. We're only making a score line, and you can feel the bumping. Okay. Now, if I've got a big sheet, right, like this, and I want to separate this, I can separate it with my core claw as well, because I can slide that right in there and slide it right through. So another tool for the core claw. Now what I want to show you is that I can also use, this is called a clever cutter. Now, clever cutter is only $2, and this is using for opening boxes, and this is a core claw, which is $22. So the clever cutter, what I can do is slide my clever cutter right into the flute, and then slide that through as well. And then I take the clever cutter again, and notice I've got one finger up here as I'm sliding the clever cutter to separate. So it takes a little bit longer, but you can do that with a clever cutter for doing your separation. Now, the next thing I want to show you is the correct way of using this core claw. Now, a lot of people put their hand around the tool and they slide it in there and they yank. You don't want to do that because you're going to end up bending the tines. So the first projection is for scoring, so that gets slid through, right? The second projection is for cutting off a piece, so I slide that in there. The nice thing is you always get a straight line. Unlike with a clever cutter, sometimes, because it wasn't designed, you can get it can get a little wavy. So that is sometimes a disadvantage with a clever cutter. Now, a clever cutter, the nice thing is I can lay it at perpendicular, and I can pull back and trim a little bit off. Now, with the core claw, if I've got a big long sheet, I'm going to hold the tool where my palm is here, and I'm just going to slide it right through. See how I can just, right? It just goes right like butter. Now, if I did this, right, sometimes you're yanking on it, so what I'll do is I'll put my hand up here, and I'll find that sweet spot, right? And so now I've got my finger over the top, so that's really cool. Now, another thing I do is notice how I have this off the edge of the table. So when I'm doing lips, we count them, 1, 2, third flute. So when I say score or cut at the third flute, I'm talking about dropping that into the third flute. And watch what I do. I'm going to let it fall on the floor. So every third flute is what I use for making my lips. So you can see how fast that is. It's just through butter. So you just keep cutting like that. So that's really cool. Now, what I want to show you here is something I discovered is, what if I go, so we're going to zoom in on that, I'm going to go every other flute. So I'm going to go here, and every other flute I'm scoring, right? Okay, now if I tip this upside down, and I look at, now I'm going to do every other flute again on the opposite side, and I want you to see what you get when you do that. Because check this out. Look at that. You get stretchy corrugated plastic that you can twist, you can make bracelets with. You can do a lot of cool, fun things with stretchy corrugated plastic. All right now we're talking about our last tool that we use with corrugated plastic. So you'll notice that this is an Eileen, right? So it's an Eileen, and I'm using corner guard up here. But what I want to call your attention to, see that sharp triangle? You don't want anybody scratching themselves. Corrugated plastic can be really sharp. So we don't cut corners like this, never like this. We lay the scissors parallel to the surface, and we drop down, and if you zoom in on that, you see that little triangle sticking up? Now watch what I do. I nip off that triangle. Same thing here, parallel to the surface, nip off the triangle, parallel, nip, nip, over here. So we go around and we cut off all of those little triangles that stick up that can potentially scratch somebody. So that's what we do with the scissors. Now, sometimes when we're making projects too, we might snip in between a piece to release that's been scored, but primarily we use the scissors at the end of our projects to go around and round off all of our edges.
All right. So here's just one of many projects that I make with corrugated plastic. This is for Caitlin, who has arthrogryposis and was never allowed to use the scissors. And so what I did in this project was I made a platform for the tabletop push down scissors to rest onto. And then I took one of those TV trays that you can use like for breakfast in bed, that goes over your waist, that raises it up. So it gives it just the right height that she needs to be able to use the scissors. So here she is.
Actually, that works really well.
And so for employment, I've used this for jobs for cutting of materials for individuals who can't use a regular pair of scissors. The whole spring loaded and a panel or a mounting board that the scissors slides into seems to work really well. These are Bernie Sanders' old election signs, and I made a folding jig for this one person that only had the use of one hand, and he wanted to be able to fold shirts and pants. Well, then we also started using it for individuals who wanted to fold towels, individuals with vision impairments, and individuals who experience intellectual disabilities.
All right, so if you only had the use of one hand and you are trying to fold your clothes, here's something really simple that you can make out of corrugated plastic to be able to fold the clothes. Folds over, and this part folds up, and voila, you can fold your clothes. The other thing you can do is if you have a pair of pants, right? Throw the pants down. Same thing. And that's how you can fold your pants. Now, let's talk about how easy it is to make one of these. So, all we need is a 36 by 28 sheet of corrugated plastic with the flutes going the 28 inch. Then we make a dot at 11 and a half on this side, and then a dot over here at 11.5 on this side. And then we make a dot in the center at about 14 inches. So this is 12, add another 2, you got 14 inches. Now that we have the dots, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the Cora claw and score down that one dot. And we're going to take the Cora claw and score down the second dot. And then we can't use the Cora claw to score going across the grain. So what we're going to do here is going to just take a ruler and we're going to connect the 2 lines up here and score going across the grain there. Okay. Now we're going to flip this over and we're going to bend here, here, okay? But we have to cut all the way down to this line. And so to do that, I'm going to take the Cora claw and we're going to come all the way down until we come to that line there. And here we're going to come all the way down till we come to this line here. Okay. Go. And bend up along the score line.
So that's how fast and easy it is to make a folding jig out of a sheet of corrugated plastic. So a lot of these projects are all designed so that you can make them in 5 minutes or less for $5 or less worth of materials. And with the Cora claw or the clever cutter, you really can't cut yourself because the razor blade is embedded inside the tool. So many of the projects that I like to make, I want it to be multi-use. I want it to be able to be used in maybe 5, 10 different ways. So this is my iPad flipper, Eileen scan and read station magnifier, and it's made out of a 24-inch by 7.5-inch sheet of corrugated plastic. And it can be, and also I like to make everything that it can collapse because it's important that it's portable, collapsible, lies flat, fits in your backpack so that it can be easily set up and taken down and it'll travel with you wherever you go.
All right, so I want to show very quickly how to make this multi-use device. As you can see, we've got the board already prepped and the instructions on how to score that is there, but we're going to be passing these out. And you can see there's rubber feet here and rubber feet here. And when you watch the video, you'll understand why that's important. And you'll see that there's a score line at 7.5 from here, and then another score line at 8.5. And then we do a score line 3/4 of the way down. So the first thing we want to do, and then on this side, you can see their tape has been applied, and we've got the hook part of Velcro on that end, and we have the loop part of the Velcro on this end. So what you're going to have to do, or whatever during the training, is cut off these pieces at the 3rd flute. And then we're going to do a little lip here. It's going to be right about there at the 3rd flute. And then we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to cut off on the 4th flute. So I'm going to cut off on the 5th flute. We can always trim that a little bit later. And I'm just going to trim, make that rounded, and make this rounded. All right, now we're ready to begin. So all I have to do is to pull that back, right? Got the Velcro part on this side, and I'm going to fold that on over. Great. Now I'm going to fold this over. And see how that gets locked in. So the next thing I want to do is take my backing off, 2 sides to create my lip. So my lip is going to be a little bit thicker or higher so that it will also support larger iPads that are in a case. So there's my lip. going to just nip off triangles here that are sharp. Now I've got my lip. Now I have to slide my iPad in so I can create my sliding track. So once again, I'm going to take the backing off of here. Now, some of the iPad Pros are a little bit taller and wider, and so I designed this so that you can use it with a little bit taller iPad as well. So I'm going to drop this right on top of the iPad. There we go. And then I made my track here, so I'm going to put that right over the top. There we go. And now I've got a way to slide my iPad in and out. And then the other cool thing is this is where I can be flipping it back and forth, right? So that's kind of cool. And it writes itself. And then when you're all done, open this up. This folds in, and now it's portable and it can be transported in your backpack.
So these portable scan and read stations, another one that you could actually make in under 1 minute. It's so easy to do with a couple of binder clips and a sheet of corrugated plastic.
All right, so to make our scan and read station, we are going to measure at 3.5 inches from the end, and we're going to make a score line. Then use our paper, measure here, and find the 11-inch side. And then we'll make our score line. Then we're going to go 3.5 inches. So I'm putting the 1/2 inch here, and but I'm actually going to cut off this piece. There we go. Now what I have to do is I have to slit from here to here and here to here. So I'm going to take my Cora Claw and I'm only going to go down just to where that folds over. Same thing on this side. Down. Folds over. So now I can fold that in, take my binder clip, and now we have our box that we can put a piece of paper in, and the iPad rests on top.
So this again collapses down very easily, something really fast, easy to do. Then we were looking at taking corrugated plastic and covering it with a rubber material, an anti-slip material that can grip onto your legs. And oftentimes people who are short, their legs go downhill, and so whatever you have on your lap keeps sliding off your lap. So I made it so that I can adjust it so that it comes up 4 inches from the back so it's level for the person, or I can collapse it down flat like in the picture on the left. And so it grips onto his jeans and he's able to transport objects that's on his lap. Then I've been doing a lot of hands-free eating and drinking solutions, and this little girl has no use of her hands and wants to be able to eat independently. And I discovered that if you take corrugated plastic and you score it once down the middle and then you flip it over and score it 3/4 of an inch to the left and the right of the fold line and then put it together with the tape, you create this spring clip with this tension. And then these quick grip clamps that you get at Home Depot, and then PVC pipe, you can make a hands-free eating solution. Dice throwing. I was getting a lot of requests for people that not able to toss the dice. And so here's a solution I came up with.
Hey, check out my dice launcher. All it is just, I was at a coffee shop and I had a cup of coffee. I was drinking the coffee and I thought, hey, what if I take this lid off, turn it upside down, push it down in there. I've got a shallow lid. And then with the corrugated plastic, I just scored it, bent it over, and I wanted something that would pivot, right? And so I just got the wire here and put the dice in there and launch it. But think about what else you could launch. You could throw some food in there. You could put a ping pong ball. You could do lots of different.
And then I found out that there's 6 different apps that on an iPhone that uses the gyroscope that's built into the iPhone. And so when the iPhone detects movements, you can have it flash lights, or you can have it make different sounds. So this is the from Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Crack the Whip app that's in there that also fits into the dice launcher.
Hey, what if you couldn't do this with the Whip app, right? You could easily put it in your phone in here and just pushing down, you can whip.
Or you could launch a ball.
Hey, look at what else you can launch. You can launch a ball, or you can launch PVC joints.
And then I got really excited. I was at Disney World and I saw lightsabers, and I thought, hey, I could make a lightsaber out of corrugated plastic. And then there's an app that's called the Lightsaber app to get the sound effects of the lightsaber that you can add in to the lightsaber. So, and I found these fairy lights at the dollar store that I can put inside the flutes of corrugated plastic. So I had a lot of fun making lots of lightsabers.
All right, check out my.
Here I am. This is just putting the lights inside of the flute. So what I do is I remove one of the partitions. So I have a little pocket on the inside of the corrugated plastic, and then I use double-sided tape so that I can put my 2 pieces of corrugated plastic together, and that is how I sandwich the lights in there. The other thing that fits inside of the flutes, that's when I say flutes, those are all those little holes. I discovered that picnic tablecloth clamps fit inside the flutes, and I can make privacy screens and partitions in between students using picnic table clamps. So this is what it looks like at election time, primary season, where I run around and start collecting all the signs, throwing it in my car. I often will bring it into the conference room, throw it up on the table, and I will cut these down to size. And the Eileen, I call it because I lean my iPad, right? And then we had the slant-a-lean, the book-a-lean, the lap-a-lean, everything working off the principle of something that you can change the angle and lean devices against. Oh, these are the electroleans because they're Eileens that are made out of election signs. And then I discovered that my Eileen could also be used as a switch mount. And so this little girl is on the deaf-blind census, and I could figure out what's the best angle for her to be able to activate the switch. And that is a Bluetooth switch that can interface with various iPad apps or with other toys. And because that whole thing, that angle adjusts vertical, you can adjust it to whatever angle the person needs it in. And this little boy didn't have the use of his hands, and the teacher wanted him to put the caps back on the markers. And so I figured out a way using these wing elbows that you get at Home Depot. Turns out that the caps and the pipsqueak markers fit inside of 1/2-inch CPVC pipe. So this worked out really well for him to be able to color and put the caps back on. And then this case, this is a combination Eileen, but you lift it up and the iPad slides into this foam insert on the inside, and then this thing closes and it looks like a book. So it's a dual purpose. It protects the iPad for transportation, shipping, whatever. And then it can be used as an eye-lean on your lap or on the table. Then this was really exciting. So I became known for my Obama leans, and guess what? I got invited to the White House, and I got to present. Obama had this whole thing on technology and disability, and I was asked to be on that panel, and I got a letter from President Obama. I was just like so excited. It was such a great trip, a great journey, wicked cool. So this is called the Book-A-Lean. And I discovered 15 inches. Book holders should be 15 inches wide, which is the same width that we want for the Lap-A-Lean, for lap boards that rest on your lap. So again, everything is portable, collapsible. It also can go on the floor for this little boy with his feet. Then I came up with the Pocket Eye-Lean, and the Pocket Eye-Lean works great for cell phones, but it also works for an iPad, because I discovered that you just need 6 inches. So having a 6-inch base is enough to offset the forces and the weight of the device so that the iPad or the iPhone or cell phones don't tip over. And then look at where she's putting her thumbs. This works out great because you've got a way to rest your hand next to it, to move it around, you've got a place to put your thumbs. And she is using an app that has contrast, and that is built into your iPhone and your iPads. And then if you take that Pocket Eye-Lean and you flip it sideways, now you've got a scan and read station. So we've been encouraging people to put QR codes on the back of their business cards so that you can scan it with your cell phone. So if you have a vision impairment, you just put your phone on top and then you slide your business card in front of the Pocket Eye-Lean, and it picks it up and it takes you right to the website. And then if you add a piece of cardboard to the Pocket Eye-Lean, now you've got a document holder. So, you know, 1 minute it's an iPhone holder, then an iPad holder, then a scan and read station for a QR code scanner. Now it's a document holder. So you got the picture. You're making a portable, collapsible, multi-use device out of a couple pieces of corrugated plastic. And in this case, I've worked with a lot of people that have tremors in their hands. And what I discovered was that if I could get the elbow as close to their body as possible to lock that in, and then if I could have something that they could push against with their palm, it calmed down the tremors and allowed them to use a stylus to be able to do texting and writing with their iPhone. So that plastic material that's wrapped around the corner of the edge that he's pushing against with his palm, that material is called Instamorph. And we're going to see more examples of Instamorph in a little bit, but I love Instamorph. It's a thermoplast. It takes 10 seconds for it to heat up and 5 minutes for it to harden. It is non-toxic, it is biodegradable, and you can reheat it in hot water up to like 6 different times. It's a lovely, lovely material to play with. Making card holders out of corrugated plastic, pretty easy to do. This was one of my first scan and read stations. And what I wanted to explain with this slide was that, you know, you come up with an idea, right? You have an idea of how to build something to help make somebody's life a little bit easier. And then you build it and then they start using it, and then you watch how they're using it, and then they say, oh, but it's kind of big, it's really hard to take it with me on the road, all of that. And then you look at that acrylic and you go, wow, you know, that acrylic costs like $10. And then you figure out a way to make it better, easier, smaller, portable, low cost. And so that's how I came up with the scan and read half box with 2 binder clips. So it's always works in progress. You're always working on improving your designs. And these slant boards, right? The slant board and lap board, you can use that. You can put your computer on top, on your lap, raise it up so it doesn't slide down your legs. So lots of things you can do with that. And then I like covering it in an EVA foam. So Michaels was selling foamies, but the foamies were primarily 9-inch by 12-inch, and this is 15 inches wide. So I discovered that the EVA foam that they lay down before they put laminate floors in, that material, it's got foil on one side and EVA foam on the other. I could get it really cheap. So I could buy big rolls of that are 4-foot rolls of this material and then cut it to size and use a spray adhesive to wrap it around my corrugated plastic and make it soft. And then the spring clip. So I showed you the spring clip with the sandwich holder. Well, here I discovered if I added a shelf to that and then clip that onto my waistband and using the Finitech iPad cases, the handle of that case will rotate upward 90 degrees. And so the shelf slides in that little hole in the handle. And then with a strap, I can create a one-handed typing solution for communicating. Here's another example of the hands-free sandwich holder for eating independently. Hands-free for egg salad sandwiches, or you can take that off, and this is the virtual personal care assistant, because now you can put another tray for pizza or carrots or celery or bananas or oranges, whatever you want to put on that tray. And then using this black material called lock line, you can position it to wherever you need to so that it's within the person's height of where their mouth is. And then I discovered not everybody sits upright when they're eating. And so this little boy needs to be leaning forward, because if not, he can choke on his food. And this is the very first time he has fed himself. And this was a donut. And notice that the spring clip is kind of on an angle upward. Well, when we put the donut in there, it would start sliding around and it didn't offer enough tension. So his mom had this black hair tie. So he wrapped the hair tie around the spring clip and it offered just enough tension so that he could take a bite of the donut without the donut coming out of the device. And look at what he's holding on to. He's holding on to an industrial twist tie that's wrapped around that black lock line. And the black lock line is attached to a quick grip clamp in the corner of his tray so that he can pull this. This whole thing rotates, and now he can feed himself independently. Here's an example of making that spring clip and making a shelf and showing how you can do one-handed typing. This I worked with a woman who was only had the use of one hand, and she was also deaf, and she was working in the shoe department, and she needed to be able to quickly communicate on the fly with the customers at Penny's. And this is for low talkers. So I wanted a way where, you know how people, you can't hear them, they're talking really softly and you're like sticking your ear almost into their mouth. Well, so I took a pocket talker and I reversed engineered it, meaning I decided that instead of the earbuds going into my ear, I would unplug that and I would plug in an extension cord and a microphone. And then with a binder clip around an industrial twist tie, I could clip that and make that real close to the person's mouth. Then I could take the speaker and put that into where I would plug my earbud into and mount that onto that spring clip that I showed you. And that slides right over the waistband. And now this is a really low cost portable PA system. So I also discovered I used it for two people. So one wanted to carry snacks up to his room and he had to hold on to the railing. And so the left hand was paralyzed. And so this is really cool. This is Velcro brand One Wrap on the right with a tapered beverage container. So if it's wider on the top and narrow on the bottom, then this whole thing slides in and out of this loop. And as it gets to the wider part, the cup just stops. So that's kind of cool. And on the left side, that's that spring clip again that clips onto that waistband. And I've got a piece of U-glue tape, and now the sandwiches or the snacks go into that Ziploc bag. So this was a very quick 5-minute solution. Then we were working on a job at the police department for a student who wanted to be an evidence collector for collecting evidence and recording it and managing the evidence in the police department, but he only had the use of one hand. So coming up with solutions on how he could do that job with one hand. And then for students with muscular dystrophy who have a real hard time feeding themselves and very little movement. So I created this mobile arm support that rotates around. You just rest your arm there, and then I raised the plate up about 6 inches. So I got it up to the right height so that very little movement to slide the food across the plate and then into the person's mouth. And then this little boy was born with 2 thumbs, and he could not pronate. He couldn't rotate his wrist. So I worked on a bunch of solutions that he could activate with the back of his hand. And this is corrugated plastic wrapped up in foamy. And I mounted a bunch of different devices onto that. So this is just showing, one of 114 different devices made with corrugated plastic, recycled election signs. And then this is a vertical iPad mount with corrugated plastic and a flagpole bracket and PVC pipe. And over the years, I've changed this. I made it so that it would be nice to make with one material and to make it really fast. And so I've now switched over to making it out of lockline material. And we'll take a look at that in a bit. But here again, corrugated plastic. This is 1/2 inch CPVC pipe. So I have a track with the wing elbows. It slides right under the corrugated plastic. And then your phone can rest on top and you can turn it into a scan and read station. This was for one of my students working at the hospital, and she had to wipe down the tables. Well, she couldn't hang on to the washcloth or paper towels. So it turns out that 3/4 inch PVC joints fit over 1/2 inch CPVC T joints. And then the winged elbows slide in this track. And then on the bottom, I put foamy and then some Velcro to grip onto the washcloth or paper towel so she could wipe the tables down by herself. And this is a portable task light. So Staples, I found these tap lights for like $5, and they're really quite bright. So I took lockline material and some Velcro and just added it, created a little base, made a little box, and this fits in the backpack. So this task light for low vision can go wherever he goes. Then the teachers were asking me to make cases for all the Chromebook computers to protect the Chromebook computers in case the student drops it. So just making little boxes that the Chromebook computer just drops into, and then duct tape for the hinge, pretty easy to do. And light boxes for students with cortical vision impairments. I discovered parchment paper. My daughter was making some chocolate chip cookies, and I never knew what parchment paper was, but she did. She did a lot of cooking, and I said, "You can't put that in the oven. That's gonna catch on fire." And she goes, "No, Mom, parchment paper keeps it from sticking to the cookie sheet." So I was like, "Wow, give me a sheet of that." And I lifted it up to the light, and I was like, "Wow, it is a great light diffuser." So I took tap lights that you can get at Home Depot or Staples, mounted them sideways, and then put parchment paper on the bottom of a piece of acrylic. And voila, I've got a portable light box made out of tap lights and corrugated plastic and parchment paper. Eye gaze boards. So if you need to communicate with somebody very quickly on the fly, you can take a dry erase marker, write all over a piece of transparency film, attach it to some corrugated plastic, and then this whole base is made out of PVC pipe. And so you look at where does their eyes go, and you can ask them questions, but it's a fast communication device for on the fly. And then this was something I did with corrugated plastic. He needed a way to turn on his communication device on and off. and I just took a little rubber bumper that you get in the housewares department that you put on cabinets so that they don't go bang, bang, bang. So yeah, so setting that up and attaching that to make that work. And here is a better shot of that recessed spring-loaded scissors that I put in that scissor platform that you saw Caitlin when she was cutting with the scissors. What I wanted you to see in this picture is, do you see that lower blade on how it's recessed in? So all I'm doing is I'm cutting a little groove, removing a little piece of corrugated plastic in the center so that the blade drops down. So now the paper can slide into the crux of the scissors. And then I put a spacer in between two pieces of the corrugated plastic. So this is something really fast and quite easy to do. Then I was looking at employment and how could I create employment jobs using and making jigs and fixtures and increasing productivity. So oftentimes employers will contact me saying, wow, this employee is really slow at getting this job done. Is there any way you could speed up his productivity? So I'll analyze the job, and usually, I mean, I make hundreds and hundreds of different jigs and fixtures for people. So this job required a bolt and a lock nut and a lock washer and a fixed mounting cap. So it was taking like about 4 minutes to assemble. Then I made this jig, and where you can load it all up and drop the bolts in with one hand. It turned out that the employees that were using the jig, their productivity increased by 400%, and the employer wanted all of the employees to use this jig. And so when we make a device to benefit somebody with a disability, right, it benefits everyone, not just that person with an intellectual disability, not just a person that happens to be blind, or not just the person that only has the use of one hand. It benefits everyone in the job place. So this is just showing how I make these jigs in about 5 minutes. Now, 20 years ago, I was making jigs out of wood, acrylic. It was really quite expensive. It was time consuming to make. And what I love about corrugated plastic is it's so easy to cut. And then I use a material that's called lock lift rug gripper tape or Remo 2 tape, because I don't like using glue. Glue takes forever for it to dry. Glue is toxic. Glue doesn't stick to all the different plastics. So this is that pink material is called pink board that you get at Home Depot. It's a rigid foam insulation that they use around foundations when they're building houses. And then just the corrugated plastic. So this is so cool to be able to make jigs in like 5 minutes and make it right there at the work site. Not having to go back to my lab, just pull out my utility knife, pull out a scrap of corrugated plastic and tape, and then go to work. And it's just, oh man, I get paid for playing. This is just so much fun.
Therese, we have a question really quick in the chat.
Oh,
Someone's asking if you sell the products that you make.
Oh, that's a really good question. Just going to stop share a second. Okay. So in terms of selling the product, so what happened is at the University of New Hampshire, the Office of Intellectual Property, what they decided to do is file patents on all of the products and stuff that I make, right? And so it costs like $10,000 to file a patent, and then the patent protects it like nobody else can make it. And I was like, that's awful. And so I went over to the Office of Intellectual Property and I ripped up all the patent applications, because after I got the one patent and was told I can't teach people how to make it, I was like really upset. And so my goal is to give the knowledge, to empower people that anybody can make these things that I'm talking about. And so what's really cool is there's 500 how-to videos. I'll show it at the end. But if you see how easy it is to make this, and if I tell you you can make it in like 5 minutes, you would be more than likely to make it yourself, right? Or you could have a making party or a make-a-thon, or a play date. Get together with your friends and make these devices and give them away. Don't charge them. So I hope that, yeah, so there's 1,500 pictures and how-to projects and resources in my book. So I really hope that you guys make them. And the other is that I travel all over the world. I've presented now in all 50 states and now in 18 other countries. And I bring materials with me and we do these hands-on make and takes. So that's really kind of fun too. And I really want more people. I want to engage our youth. I want to engage people with disabilities to make all these devices. So thank you for asking that question.
Another question that came up at the same time was, do you have your books available in Spanish at all?
No, however, because of the 500 videos, you scan it with your iPhone, and I'm a very visual learner. So I think pictures and words are really hard to follow. So I like to color code things, because when I'm teaching in other countries, they can't speak English either. So if I make it with very visual, like put this here and put this piece here, that in other countries, like in Korea and Saudi Arabia and India and Italy and Czech Republic and Poland, people are really delighted because it empowers them to be able to make it. So the answer is no, it's not in Spanish, but I really think that if you watch these videos and look at the pictures, the how-to, I really think that you can make these things.
Another question, where are these videos? Do you have a YouTube channel? Is that you
So
with the book?
I'm just going to take it off of, I'm going to remove my video filter to video virtual background so I can show this for a second here. Then you see my messy office. Look at my messy office. But, all right. So I wanted people to have instant access. So you'll see these QR codes. So you scan the QR code and then it takes you right to the YouTube. So I've got like about 2,000 how-to YouTube clips. So you look at, okay, so how do I make that? So you scan it with your phone and it takes you right to the YouTube clip on how to make all these projects. So that's what's
awesome.
really cool.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. But wait, that's not, because what happens is people often will say, well, where do you get the items? So I researched the internet. So I don't work for any of these companies, but in the back of the book, there's like over 200 QR codes that take you to where to get the different tools or the different plastics. So you can scan that, it goes right to the website for ordering that. And also like resource people or more videos to watch. So that's all. I wanted it to be a really awesome, comprehensive book. So it's only been out for a month now. So it's like really kind of hot off the press, but I think you'll find it as the most comprehensive assistive technology makers book that you can find.
People are asking where they can buy your book. Is Amazon the best place to direct them? I can put the link in the chat.
Yeah. So Make Stuff and Love People. It's in the handout and it's on Amazon.com. So it's Therese Willkomm, Assistive Technology Solutions in Minutes, Book 3, and Make Stuff and Love People. So see if you can find it on Amazon. Yeah, if you put my name in and you put Assistive Technology Solutions in Minutes, Book 3, so it's that green, you should be able to find it on Amazon. Or you can always call me and email me. My contact information is in the hand. Look, she found it. Kelly found it. Cool.
did. I put the link in the chat there.
Wait a second. Is that book 3?
Yes.
Because there's 3. Okay, so you got the right color. Okay, great.
Yeah, the Make Stuff and Love People green one. Yep.
Cool, because I have 2 other books there too. So cool. All right, I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint. All right, so taping jigs. So I had this job where the tape had to be perfect. It had to be right in the middle because we're making these spacer boards and these really cool track boards. And so I made this jig, and again, productivity increased, and now everybody can put the tape in the right places. And so that's really cool. Music. I think art and music is so important for everyone to be able to express themselves. So I do a ton of art and music adaptations. And so I make these boxes out of corrugated plastic. These are called sound shapes. And that's really kind of cool to be able to for somebody that has very limited movement and can't hold on to a drum, and we can mount these all over. I've made lots of mounting solutions that easily attach to a wheelchair, and I combine lock line with PVC pipe. And so it pivots and it rotates, and again, nice, cool 5-minute solution. This is an iPad Pro, and when I'm working with individuals who have low vision, and this was for a piano teacher, wanted to play the piano, and she needed to see the notes really large, and it also had to be really bright. So I added this whole thing to an OT light so that there was sufficient light and contrast, and then this goes right over the piano. And this was a student with scoliosis, and she had surgery, and she had this great fatigue. She could not hold her head up. So, and it was painful for her to sit. So I found a seat cushion, but again, I had to come up with a really quick 5-minute solution. So I had pink board in the closet, and I had lock lift rug gripper tape. And so I made a headrest for her real fast that I attached to a piece of corrugated plastic. And then I found that it slid under the chair, and then I got her a seat cushion, but then it raised her feet up off the ground. So I took another piece of pink board and put it under her feet. So this is a really great example about carpe diem, seize the day. If you ever watched Dead Poet Society, about seize the day, take the opportunity, spend 5 minutes, come up with a solution. This is privacy screen, students with attention deficit disorders who are easily distracted, just taking corrugated plastic and making 2 score lines, voila, you've got a privacy screen. I also cover this in this Velcro material called Veltex, and I can make exhibit boards out of it. This was at a cafe. This whole thing rotates around. It's made out of corrugated plastic and lock line, so that, you know, people using the square and the customer has to sign their name. So the students with disabilities are able to rotate this around in front of the customer. Commercially, if you were to buy something like this, they were charging like $150, and I was able to make it for like $10 worth of material. And then I came up with a dual mounting arm using lock line material and 3-ring binders. And again, the idea is make a mounting solution in 5 minutes or less with Velcro brand 1-wrap and lock line. So this gentleman has cerebral palsy, and he is an artist. And when he does the painting, so he uses his teeth for painting, and everything has to be at a certain angle, and we're constantly having to adjust his easel. So this is something I came up with very, very quickly that slides on and off of his wheelchair. And then this is 10 mil corrugated plastic. Instead of your election signs are 4 mil, it's thinner, but the 10 mil, wow, that is as strong as wood, but as light as a feather. It is like really a great, great material to work with because it's just nice and rigid, but very, very lightweight. So for a while there, I was making spring-loaded scissors using a clothespin. And now I'm like, no. So just because you can doesn't mean you should. And here's the reason: that if it's taking me 45 minutes because I've got to get the Instamorph and I've got to heat this up and all of that, when you can buy commercially available scissors for $10, you come out ahead by buying the scissors versus trying to make your own spring-loaded. I mean, you can still do that. And if you have the time, go ahead and do that. But I've switched to just buying the spring-loaded scissors. Then for hearing loss, sometimes you can get by with creating a sounding board because the iPad has 4 speakers on the back of it. And if you slide the iPad in a track just right, so that there is a perimeter around each of the speakers, the sound hits that backboard and then the sound pushes forward. So it's a way of increasing amplification without having to plug in an external speaker into the iPad. Scooters. So I've been adding iPads to scooters, and this is for somebody that has paralysis on the right hand and uses his left hand to cross midline to be able to activate the communication apps on the iPad. And then he uses his left hand to steer the scooter. This was for a student with autism that would not sit in a desk. And then when I did this whole cantilever with the lock line and a quick grip clamp, he then would sit down next to the easel and he would interact, he would draw, he would interact with the iPad. So this was a simple solution. This was for a principal at the high school, and the principal happened to have ALS, and he was needing to communicate with the students in the hallway. And so I quickly came up with this mounting solution for his scooter. And what I like about this picture is, do you see that yellow switch? That is a mechanical switch, and it just is not practical. If you think about how much effort a student has to go through and all the energy to hit that yellow switch. So I discovered a tiny little switch, and it's called an Selfie Button, and it works Bluetooth with your iPad or your iPhone. And I was able to mount it on the back of her headrest, so that tiny little movements, when she would rock her head to the left or to the right, it would easily take a picture. And everybody's wheelchair is different. So I wanted to come up with a mounting solution that would work on anybody's wheelchair. And so this is using Velcro brand 1 wrap and a figure 8 wrap, creating a little sliding tube that the white 3/4 inch PVC pipe slides in and out of. And, so her job, so her first job was she was the class photographer. And so that was great. She was able to take pictures. Well, then we discovered we could do 2 switches. So one switch to turn pages left and another switch to turn pages right. Well, then we discovered we could also do multiple choice. So she could pick the correct answer just by going and swiping left and right using a Bluetooth switch. So that was really fun, of really opening the doors to other things that she could do. Read, she could take exams this way. She could do a variety of things. This little boy, he really liked pushing grocery carts. He liked the vibration of the grocery carts, and he liked going to the store just to push the grocery cart. So then they got him one of those little toy tractors that you can push around outside because that had vibration. Well, then as he grew, he outgrew the little toy, lawnmower thing that he would push around. So I made something that he could push around that was made out of corrugated plastic and PVC pipe. And I had these, flexible joints on it. And so he liked the vibration. Well, then we put microfiber cloths on the bottom. And when he's walking around the house, not only is he's got something to push against, but it turns out that his mother loves it because he's mopping the floors on the house. This is using 2 iPads. One is that 13-inch iPad, and then the other is the 10-inch iPad. And using the magnification app that is built into the iPads to zoom in on the chalkboard or to zoom in on your worksheet. And so we find that lots of schools have iPads, and so that was something really simple to do. This is a service dog, and I had to create a dog treat dispenser so you can push the treat down through a tube, and then I made this out of Instamorph, and dog treats need to be administered at knee high. And so this was something simple that worked on this guy's wheelchair. And this is just showing using shims to be able to slide over the table to create mounts, because I never want to put Velcro directly on anybody's wheelchair tray. Anything I do has to be easily removed, do no harm to people's wheelchairs. So you don't want to put any tape or glue on anything on their chair. Everything has to slide on, fixed. And so this is the first time this boy has been allowed to interact with the iPad independently. Before I came up with this, the teachers would hold an iPad in front of him. Well, you know, it's kind of hard to hold an iPad in front of somebody because you start swaying back and forth. So just using lock line, quick grip clamp, and recycled election signs, track, corner guard from the wallpaper department, voila, you've got a very fast, simple iPad holder. Then I started making these track boards and mounting three-dimensional objects on it, using it for math, for colors, for making chore boards, etc. Having something that would slide back and forth, started making them even smaller. This is looking at mounting of a book. And again, using corrugated plastic and lock line and clamps. Cell phones. I am adamant that everyone needs a cell phone to be able to communicate, and that the cell phone needs to be accessible. So I spent a lot of time going into the settings, making sure with facial recognition is always turned on so that you can easily interact with the phone, looking at apps with large buttons to tap onto, making tracks out of corrugated plastic, using duct tape. Duct tape has all different patterns, so you can decorate it any way you want. And you can see I've mounted this underneath the armrest on the wheelchair. So there's lots and lots of ways of making cell phone holders. I already showed that one. This one is an iPad recessed into a board. So I just traced the iPad, cut a hole in the corrugated plastic, and then dropped the iPad in, because the student was throwing the iPad. And so we needed a way to keep the iPad stable so that the iPad couldn't be tossed and thrown on the floor. And so then the hand just slides over the top to interact with the communication apps. And then this little boy, the parents wanted the iPad up. So what I want you to do is you look at this, and yeah, it looks kind of ugly, which is fine, which is great, because think about this. If you can do rapid prototype, you got an idea in your head, and if you make something like really fast, right? And then you watch him using it, and then you look at, is he using it? Does it have to be higher? Does it have to be lower? Then you can make it out of sinter board, which is beautiful, or acrylic. So this is a great example of rapid prototyping. So he used it for about 3 months, and then we made a permanent solution out of better materials. Here is object communication. So I showed you the eye gaze board with a dry erase marker and a piece of transparency film. Here I'm using a product called Remo 2. It's also sometimes called Nano Tape. You can now find it at Target, at Marshall's, at a lot of the different stores. And it's a washable tape. It's really sticky, so you can put an object on that piece of tape, take it off. And we don't like using Velcro because you got to cut up this Velcro, and Velcro has this yucky adhesive on the back of it. And blah. So that's why I like using Remo 2 or Nano Tape. It's a removable, washable, sticky on both sides type of tape to put objects on. Creating key guards. So the challenge is that all these apps, everything has different holes, different formats, and can be really expensive getting key guards for all the different apps. And I discovered transparency film, and And it's kind of hard to see in this picture, but the transparency film is on top and there's these half moon holes cut out. And so your finger just slides into the hole and it drops down to be able to tap the different icon that's underneath the hole. And then your finger slides backwards. So it's only half moon circles, not a full circle, because you want the finger to slide in and stop and then slide back out. So this was one of the first ones, right, with foamy, and I didn't like this one because the students' hands would touch the foamy and pull the foamy out. And that's why I came up with the other key guard. I already showed that one. This is showing how the shelf fits inside the Finitech iPad case. This is showing you the spring clip on the waistband with the shelf. Cars. Remember I talked about cell phones, but I really think communication is important. And I think that it's really important that we remember December 15th each year. And we should call attention to December 15th because that is when the First Amendment was passed. And that is all about freedom of speech. And everyone should be able to exercise their freedom of speech, which means that everyone needs to have access to communication technologies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in every environment. So if you're sitting in the back seat of the car and you want to communicate with somebody in the front seat of the car, how are you going to do that? So I found out that the pockets behind the driver's seat and the passenger seat, if I score the corrugated plastic, I can just slide that in. So that's a nice little hinge there. And I can easily take a piece of acrylic and a Spitfire torch and heat and bend because it only takes 10 seconds to heat acrylic and 5 seconds for it to cool off and harden. So it's great material to work with. So now I've got a really nice way to mount the communication device so that she can communicate with her mom in the front seat. And they commute about an hour each day. And so you got 2 hours where you're sitting in the car and you want to be able to talk to your mom, right? So, and then I was showing that earlier about coming up with a one-handed solution for holding pages open. So I've taken that spring clip, used U-glue to attach it to the Lapoline or the Bookaline, and then created a low friction coefficient sliding thing so that the page slides underneath. And again, there's videos that go with everything I'm showing you here is, you will find all these pictures, all the videos in the book. And this is another way of making a book holder. So I've been showing some alternative ways of making book holders. And then when you're laying in bed, to be able to watch a video, right? And I was finding that a lot of kids were spending a lot of hours in bed and that parents were putting kids to bed really early and kids were having a real hard time falling asleep. So I figured out I could make a track system out of recycled election signs. I could put a paddle on the back that would slide in between one of my industrial twist tie, which is a piece of aluminum wire, thick wire covered in EVA foam that I can bend and just rest that around a piece of 3/4 inch PVC pipe. And so I've got this whole thing that slides under the mattress. And so it's called the Protege, and it's about $6,000, but I was able to make something very similar to that just using the iPads that the schools had. And I made a whole track system out of recycled election signs for the camera to slide back and forth. Making dry erase boards for communication. That's really easy. You know, all this transparency film that they've been tossing out because they're saying, oh, we don't use transparency film anymore. We don't use overhead projectors. And so I said, give me all of that. I make lots of things out of it. And so I tape it onto the board. So I've got a pocket. Now you just slide a piece of copy paper in there, right? And then you can take a dry erase marker and write all over it and then erase it. So you can make an easy whiteboard out of corrugated plastic, transparency film, and a sheet of white paper. Dot makers. So, you know, everywhere you go, you see QR codes, and QR codes are being put on worksheets and handouts. But what if you have a vision impairment? How do you know if there's a QR code and how do you access it. So I created a dot maker for QR codes so that I can easily, so here I've taken a paper clip and I've taken the center part of that wire and I bent it up 90 degrees and I cut off the top of it so that there's only 1/4 of an inch sticking up. Then I put a piece of dual lock, which is interlocking plastic mushrooms on the other side. And so and then I mounted the paper clip to a piece of 3M VHB tape. So it's spring loaded. So you can put a business card in there, you can put the worksheet, whatever the QR code, and you snap it on the back and it puts a raised dot in the lower left-hand corner of the QR code. So you put your finger on the dot and then that's where the QR code is. So you can take your cell phone and then pull it backwards and the phone will vibrate once it captures the QR code and voila, it takes you right to that website that you can read with the VoiceOver app. Then I wanted a way for the strings of a guitar to raise right up, right off the table. And I figured out I could use, again, recycled transparency film. So I trace the lines and then I flip it upside down on a piece of foamy that's attached to corrugated plastic. And I take a ballpoint pen because if I then trace the line, that pen is going to push that plastic right into that EVA foam, that foamy sheets you get in the crafts section of Staples or Michaels. And then I pick it back up and then I put it on top of the iPad. And now the strings of the guitar raise right up. So if you have a vision impairment, you can feel all the strings on the guitar app. It's called GarageBand app that's free from Apple. And then I wanted a way to raise the iPad up and to be able to magnify, to zoom in and out across the classroom or on the board. So this is a really wicked cheap 5-minute solution for distance magnification. Gardening. I think gardening is really important. And so I wanted ways to adapt rakes. And so I'm making forearm supports and I'm using 1-rep and PVC pipe. And so this is wicked simple to do. And then adding on arm support, because a lot of times people in their wheelchairs, they can only get so far, but they can't reach. So on the right side, this is called Beams. It's a musical for making music. And she just has to move her fingers a little bit to break the laser beam, which then activates the musical instruments. So you can have piano and guitar, etc. But I needed something to rest her forearm up at the correct height. So again, recycled election signs and lock line. And fidget board. So this is my fidget machine. And this plastic material that I've locked it into, that's called dual lock. And I put dual lock on PVC end caps that you get at Home Depot. And then these two things rotate and it's just a nice, cool fidget. So you move one and then it's like gears, right? And they all rotate. And so in my book, I have the QR code that takes you to all the files. So if you have a 3D printer and you want to print these blue things, you'll have the plans. Very easy to print it, or you can get somebody else to print it on their 3D printer for you. Here's some more sliding track boards. Then I discovered this is my spinner board because I could put a bunch of them together in different angles. Like I also discovered if I put one on top of the other at a 90-degree angle, I can get that to rotate too. So that's really fun. And this all slides. Again, I'm using recycled election signs and wing elbows from Home Depot. And then I wanted to create a Disney board. And I wanted to create a board that not only has 3-dimensional objects that you can feel, but I wanted every object that slides on this trackboard, I wanted it to do something. Whether it spins or rotates, or the light flashes, or the wheels turn, or you could rotate. or a bell inside of Mickey Mouse's ears makes sounds. So I'm often looking at things in my environment that has a variety of textures. So this is for the kids with vision impairments or cortical vision loss. And little movements. So I look at little movements make big sounds. So this is where I discovered I could take PVC pipe, and these are wind chime things that hang down, and now you could just move that pipe back and forth and it hits the wind chimes to make music. Again, using quick grip clamps. I'm obsessed with quick grip clamps that you can get in all different sizes at Home Depot. You can make all sorts of really cool mounting solutions. I already showed that one. This is a better picture of the Eileen case, because when you open the case and you take the iPad out, I have this invisible hinge that folds down, and then it creates like this well, right? And there's this lip so that you can just drop your iPad right in there. And cases often cost like $60, but now you got a case that is far more stable. And the foamy also, if you put this on your lap, that foamy material grips onto your pants too. And it's at the right angle. It's a perfect angle when you're maybe sitting in the back seat of the car, or you're sitting on the couch, or you're sitting on a park bench. It's a great angle to be able to quickly interact with your iPad in a relaxed environment. Page lifters. So there's a ton of page lifters that are out, and I've made a variety, and here's some that are made out of, again, recycled election signs. And I'm using a material that is called Remo 1. It's removable, right? And so you attach it to all the pages, and you can say, turn to the orange pages or turn to the purple pages, right? So you can quickly get to the page that you're looking for by using color code. And these colors, this is just the self-adhesive foamies that you get at Michael's. And that's what's wrapped around. And then I put rubber bumpers on the top too for kids with vision impairment, so they can easily feel and distinguish between the two pages by the rubber bumpers. So that video shows, you know, how to make those. And then lately I have discovered that those tiny little clothespins fit inside of the flutes of corrugated plastic, and it creates tension. And so I've been making new page lifters with corrugated plastic and itty bitty baby clothespins. So unfortunately, I only get to present for 2 hours, so I can't show you everything, but again, you'll see it in the book. Here's that Lapoline. This is at a conference, and the student was trying to take notes. And I said, here, you got to try my Lapoline. Put your notebook computer right on there. And it was great, because without that, the computer was sliding down her leg. So, and again, the Lapoline is portable, collapsible, fits in the backpack. And this gentleman has a high-level spinal cord injury, and he's also an amazing artist. And I discovered that the Apple pen has very little effort is required to interact with this pen. And if I take the industrial twist tie and wrap it around the pen and create an opening for the hand to slide in, that pen can be positioned at any position using that industrial twist tie, because you can bend it, rotate it, you can do all sorts of cool things. And then the foam rubber also will grip and hold the pen in place so it doesn't slide through. This was for a student with autism, and the student wanted to be able to read what the teacher was saying. So the teacher is walking around in front of the room, and she's got a Bluetooth headset, and she's using Dragon Naturally Speaking. So it's getting typed up using Otter, so that works great. And then the student also has an iPad in front of them for doing their worksheets. So using 2 tablets on the desk is what worked for this student. Then this, I discovered, this is called cat tongue tape. Oh my gosh, this is wicked cool, but really expensive. So this is a non-slip tape that you can apply to the surface of corrugated plastic. It will grip onto whatever you put So it's a non-slip tape. It's probably the grippiest tape I've ever had. So you peel and stick it on, but it's like $10 a roll, and it costs like $10. I use like a whole roll of this tape on this board. So I'm trying to look at using a combination of rubber tape and cat tongue tape because of the expense of it. But here's a bunch of boards. So here's what I do in the lab. So before COVID, we had all sorts of volunteers. And so we'd set up shop on a Saturday or at night, and we would make these portable collapsible slant boards and Lapoline boards. And then we'd make piles and piles. And then we'd let people know, hey, we just made another 50, who needs one? And then we would just send it in the mail. And then COVID happened, and that was kind of cool because we discovered a thing called click and ship with the post office. They'll come right to your house and pick up the package, and they provide all the shipping supplies, everything for free. And we just put the devices in there, and then out the door they go to all the different people with disabilities in New Hampshire. But I'm sharing this because I hope you get inspired to maybe do the same thing in Oregon. Then I became obsessed with marble mazes. And at first I was doing it out of a sheet of acrylic on the top. And I was using like necklace beads, just, I call them old lady necklaces that nobody wants, right? And so you just take the beads off and you create the marbles that way. You could also use colored rice. You can use beads that you find, but Mardi Gras beads. At Mardi Gras time, man, those are like $1 a piece, but people like throw those things away and tell them don't throw them away because you can cut up those beads and you can be really creative in the mazes that you make. And then I covered the top part of the corrugated plastic with red self-adhesive foamy because I wanted contrast. But then this year, this is really exciting because, I'm going to stop sharing because I'm going to show you what I'm going to do this. Okay. So I have discovered that I can make this all out of all these really cool things. Transparency film with Remo 1, right? So you've got, right? You can make all sorts of cool sensory boards, marble mazel. So Michael has these jingle bells, right? So you can do that kind of cool stuff with it. So that's been fun. So I've been making a bunch of those. All right. All right, iPads. Now, I really hate switch scanning on an iPad. Oh my gosh, it's just like so labor intensive. What a waste of time, right? And then I discovered switch access recipes. Holy cow, because I'm using the Remo tape. I mark it here. Let's see if I mark it with this Remo 2 tape, and I create my recipe. So one switch might turn the pages and another switch might turn it back. But with YouTube, oh my goodness, because anything that has a static screen, you can mark different parts of that screen. And that app, like pbskids.org, has over 300 games that you can access on the web. So you don't have to get any apps at all. You just have to have access to the internet. You go to pbskids.org and look at the different games, and then take a piece of that clear tape, mark the glass of where normally you would tap it, create a switch access recipe, and you can be just as fast as interacting with it using a switch as somebody without a disability interacting with these games on pbskids.org. And as a matter of fact, there was a student who was doing video editing, and he was doing faster video editing using this approach with switch access than someone without a disability. So really wicked cool. Cup holders, drink holders. Every time I see somebody holding up a beverage in front of somebody's mouth, I just cringe. And same thing with the food. I'm like, wait a second. people should be able to drink when they want. They should be able to relax when they're eating and drinking, and have choices on how much they want to put in their mouth, etc. So I'm big time into hands-free eating and drinking, and creating these 5-minute solutions. Then working with Home Depot, this worker, so I came up with a way that with acrylic, that he could use his cell phone to be able to communicate, that he could drink independently. And I wanted his beverage to be able to slide back and forth. I wanted the cell phone to be at the perfect angle that he could communicate with other workers at Home Depot. So these are things that I quickly came up with for him. And then hands-free typing. So if we create a platform or a table that comes up about 6 inches below the person's chin, and you want mouse sticks. So this is, again, that Instamorph that I was telling you about, which is really cool, and a microfiber tip. You want those mouse sticks to be really short, because the longer a mouse stick is, the more effort, the more risk that you place at the person's neck. So if you create the mouse stick really short, then tiny movements, and he does all of his editing, all of his schoolwork, everything with this mouse stick. And this was a nice, cool 5-minute solution. Then this fits inside of a pencil case, and you can take it to the library. And this is using one of the many different scanning apps. So Seeing AI or KNFB Reader. Again, you got the phone, aim it at the page, you tap the screen, it scans it and starts reading out loud. And you can use a set of Bluetooth headphones. So when you're in the library, you don't disturb other people. It grips onto the table, your desk. It's portable, fits in the pencil case, into the backpack. So this is the fastest solution for scanning, reading documents on the fly for students with learning disabilities or print disabilities. This is Caitlin showing the scissors. This is that portable collapsible table that gets it to just the right height for her. All right, so here's some pages out of my book. So I wanted to show you that when you build a project, you need to know, first of all, what are all the tools and materials you need to build that project, right? Okay, so you need to have a parts list, so that when you go to the store or you go online and you order it, that you have the parts list. Then you need to see, well, what are you building? You know, what's the project and why is it important and how can it be used and how can it be taken apart in 25 different ways? And then you need to watch the step-by-step on how do you cut PVC pipe? How do you glue PVC pipe, right? How do you assemble these pieces? So that's a page from the book. That's what it looks like in the book. Here's like the resources, right? So that's a couple pages. Where do you find all these fasteners? Where do you find the mounting materials that I'm talking about? So you can scan it. So if you find it in the book and you're like, oh, that's great, but where did she get that? Go to the back chapter, and then you'll find all the tools and materials to make that particular project. It'll take you right to the different websites. But I would encourage you to shop around. These are ones that I go to when I'm looking at for buying these things, but you might come up with other places that you can get these products at a lower price. Then I thought it was important to let you know that there are amazing people throughout the United States doing making this whole makers movement and making assistive technology. So I have a page called Amazing People Doing Amazing Stuff. And then the page on the right is, I have lots and lots of online lectures. And I understand that this whole webinar that I'm doing, it's being recorded. So that is really cool, because you can always go back to this particular video and watch it again. And so these are things that are up on YouTube of lectures that people recorded of me talking about different topics. So that's also in the book. And then this is, I'm saying about how we really, really need to engage our youth. We need to inspire our youth. And right now, because of COVID, kids that are 12 years of age and older are getting fully vaccinated. So now they're allowed to come to our lab, and we love working with 12-year-olds. because they're very inquisitive and they like to play with materials and they like to build things. And I just want to hook them in. I just want to inspire them to know that this is an amazing field. Assistive technology is an amazing field where you get paid for playing every day, which is like really wicked cool and fun. And then, so this again is, there's my email address. So you can email me anytime. If you want to buy like books in volume, you could get if you contact me directly, you can get a better price than what you'd get on Amazon. But if you're just going to buy one book or whatever, you can do it a couple different ways. You can go to Amazon, or you can call me too. We can take credit cards and the Square and Venmo, however you want to pay. So that's that one. And then I'm going to stop sharing. But during COVID, so this whole thing on using a cell phone, right? And so I found, this is from an iSelfie kind of stick. And so what I can do is I can stick my phone in there, right? And so now, and then I look like for weights and stuff, that, because I want something low profile, but if I have to focus, because your iPhone has a camera, 2 cameras. So I can switch from the camera here versus the camera on the back, and something simple, easy to make that fits on the desk. That's like really cool. Here's my little card holder, right? That unfolds, rolls it up. I'm telling you, this is the best job in the whole wide world. So I'm going to open it up for any questions that people might have.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Well, there's been some comments in the chat about not questions, but just how incredible you are, and the ingenuity and the creativity. And it's inspiring. A lot of people have some ideas of what to do. Yesenia was just saying that her daughter's watching with her, and she's very excited to make some projects for her brother and herself, some assistive technology types of projects. So thank you so much for sharing today. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to read the chat here and see if anybody else had any questions. We'll give people a minute or so. And in the meantime, I wanted to share that I just copy and pasted the link in the chat to our Survey Monkey. So everybody can please fill out that survey and let us know some feedback. We always are looking for ways to improve and what was valuable, so we can make sure we're continuing to provide quality in our handouts and our trainings, and just what would be more helpful. And then the other thing is we're doing a drawing on Friday, a $50 gift card drawing. Everybody who fills out the survey will be entered into that drawing, and then we are going to draw the winner on Friday. So please, between now and Friday, make sure you go to the link here in the chat and fill that out. It looks like we've got some people here in the comments. Oh, everybody's just saying how amazing you are and all that. So thank you.
You know, it'd be really cool, you know, after COVID and all of that, you should invite me to Oregon and we could play, we could make.
Oh my goodness, we would love to have you. We would absolutely love to do that, especially now that things are opening back up, hopefully. Yeah. Yes. Oh my goodness, this has been just such a gift. Thank you so much. Let me double check one thing really quick here before we sign off here. Make sure there's no other questions. And then I wanted to make sure that we shared the ways for people to get in touch, and if they have follow-up questions.
Oh, we do have a question here about painting PVC pipe. Yes, Rust-Oleum makes, you have to make sure that you buy, it's called plastic paint. You can't use regular paint, otherwise it's going to chip. You want to get the plastic, and I recommend 2 coats when you spray it, because sometimes on PVC it can chip away. So, but get paint that's for plastics.
Awesome. What a great tip. Thank you for answering that question. Oh, people want you to come to Oregon in the chat too. Other people think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea as well. Well, if we don't have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then we can go ahead and make sure that we